Good morning. My name is Lisa Sundin. I'm the West Coast Director of Coalition for Green Capital. As the leading organization working on the Green Bank effort at the state, federal, and international levels, we're strongly in support of California's interest in establishing a green bank using cap-and-trade auction revenue funds. A green bank essentially uses low-cost, long-term public funds to leverage private investments that each public dollar results in multiple private dollars of investment. We believe California has the potential to maximize the impact of cap-and-trade dollars by encouraging this private investment through a green bank, helping to meet SB 535 and AB 32 goals. Currently, there's no single entity in California dedicated to leveraging that private capital while simultaneously reducing rates and lowering the cost for ratepayers across the state. Based on our work to establish green banks in Connecticut, New York, and Hawaii, we believe that we require approximately $200 per year to sustain an effective California green bank. We're encouraged by the mention of a green bank in the proposal we're discussing today, and we hope that it can be a more prominent component of the long-term funding strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sundin.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Faber with Environmental Defense Fund, and I just wanted to first acknowledge what we see before us today with the amount of stakeholders that are here to discuss this matter. And to me, what that tells us is that AB 32 is truly seen as part of the fabric of California, and I think that's really something to celebrate. And that we acknowledge that this opportunity before us with the investments from the cap-and-trade program are such an important opportunity that not only can improve the health and welfare of Californians, but as has been mentioned already today, really continue to make us a leader in the United States and across the globe. And so just one other point to make, really just wanted to associate myself with the comments that Lisa just made regarding the creation of a so-called green bank, and appreciate that the current budget proposal does recognize the role that a green bank could play in California. I'm currently, in my role today, representing a large coalition of nonprofits, of investors, and of clean energy businesses, really seeking to promote the creation of this kind of financing to be transformational, as Senator De Leon said, not to fund the status quo, and actually get to a point where investors are cooking in California. And Senator De Leon really mentioned the myriad of opportunities across energy storage, energy efficiency in low-income communities, smart grid, water energy efficiency, and just to one last thing to reiterate on what Lisa said, because I think she may have misspoke real quick, is that the work that she's doing in other states, they're funding their green banks at about plus or minus $200 million a year. So I just want to make that clear.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dan Jacobson with Environment California. To keep it quick, let me just say thank you to the leadership of the two senators here. It's important that we need to make sure that the money that's used here goes to being able to reduce the most amount of carbon. And especially when you look at some of the clean transportation issues, that's really important, because we can not only figure out ways to have the biggest impact on global warming that was discussed earlier, but also have a significant impact on some of the most worst air polluted parts of this country and of the state. And that's going to become a critical area for us as we figure out how to do both of those things at the same time. And the proposal that Senator De Leon's got with 1275 leads us in that right direction. And as the world gets ready to look at the next way to tackle carbon in Paris in 2015, it's important for them to see California and the leadership that this program provides in being able to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson.
Good morning, Michelle Passero with the Nature Conservancy, and appreciate the opportunity to speak and thank the senators and the committee for their leadership on this issue. We are part of the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition, as well as a Natural and Working Lands Coalition, and we support investments of auction proceeds across the economy, including natural resource conservation. This is the first time that the state will be investing these funds, and so we do need to make sure that we get it right. And we also need to include a process so that we can learn as we go, especially after these initial investments. So if we do go the route of establishing a permanent funding allocation across the sectors, I think we should ensure that we have a process for making course corrections with public input. And also, we should designate an entity to set general criteria for these investments for guiding and monitoring them. So we think the Strategic Growth Council in partnership with ARB, could be such a body. With respect to natural resource investments, we do believe that the percentage should be higher in the initial plan. For example, our forests do absorb roughly 7% of our overall statewide emissions, yet as we heard from our colleagues at the Pacific Forest Trust, that the recent inventory is now showing that this is likely eroding and could be a much bigger problem than we initially thought. With respect to the Strategic Growth Council and SCS implementation in SB 375, it would be great for them to play a more active role in integrating natural resource conservation, affordable housing, and transportation all together, so we can optimize those benefits.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Julie Snyder with Housing California, also here as a member of the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition. I would echo Michelle's comments about supporting the breadth of investments. In particular, Housing California is very pleased that Senator Steinberg de Leon, the committee chair, other members of the committee recognize the exciting opportunity to not only meet our climate goals, but also to create jobs and reduce housing costs for lower income households. And truly the timing couldn't be better. In the last week, both the LA Times and the Sacramento Business Journal have noted that Sacramento is short almost 53,000 homes affordable to very low-income households, while Los Angeles suffers from a shortage of 10 times that amount. Given the urgency that Senator De Leon in particular expressed, there seems to be agreement among interested stakeholders that the existing transit-oriented development program at the Department of Housing and Community Development is the right mechanism for getting funds out the door quickly in a highly competitive process. Going this route will produce tangible results in as little as 12 to 18 months after the awards. And as Senator Hancock noted earlier, the program gives extra points for developments that provide free transit passes, thus reducing residents' transportation and housing costs at the same time.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We would recommend a couple tweaks to the program. We'll talk later with staff.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chuck Mills with California Relief, a member of the 535 Coalition, Sustainable Communities for All Coalition, and Natural Working Lands Coalition. I'll save a few seconds by just saying I align many of my comments with my colleague, Ms. Passero from Nature Conservancy, regarding percentages for natural resources, oversight for all projects, and flexibility to adjust for the future as the science develops. We do very much appreciate the specific natural resource projects identified within this proposal, obviously urban forestry, parks in disadvantaged communities, forests, wetlands. Remind the committee that this is the only sector that reduces GHGs through both avoidance and sequestration. And then finally, urge the committee as we move forward on this proposal to continue to use the implementation plan to guide how natural resource funds would be administered and expended, relying on state agencies with demonstrated expertise to meet these goals, as reflected in the Senate's 1415 proposal. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair Leno, Tim Carmichael with the California Natural Gas Vehicle Coalition. Thank you, Senators De Leon and Steinberg, for your leadership and your vision. We're very supportive of what you're trying to do. My comments are focused on the low-carbon transportation piece, the clean vehicles piece, and more specifically, heavy-duty trucks. We believe that the cap-and-trade revenues provide a tremendous opportunity to deploy thousands of clean natural gas trucks in the near term. And we see that as both a near-term and long-term solution because of the potential to phase in renewable natural gas, which is the lowest carbon fuel that the Air Board has identified to date. We are advocating for a portion of the heavy-duty truck funds to be used for deployment. We are not advocating against, in any way, the demonstration projects that have been proposed by the governor's office and others. That is an important piece. But many of those fuels and technologies are going to be in that demonstration mode for a number of years to come, and we believe it makes sense to take a portion of these funds and deploy clean trucks in the near term, especially in the most impacted communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmichael.
Mr. Chair, members, Joshua Shaw with the California Transit Association, representing all of your public transit systems who operate the intercity passenger rail services you heard about, the commuter rail services you heard about, and local bus, light rail, and paratransit services you heard about, all of whom asked me to thank Senator Steinberg and Senator De Leon and the Budget Committee Chair and the leadership for coming together on this amazing opportunity, this proposal that leads to amazing opportunities for the folks who take public transit. We offered 1.4 billion passenger trips on transit last year, but as Senator Steinberg said, we can do better. California must do better. We like so many parts of this proposal, particularly the 25% pot for transit that both senators spoke about. A couple senators asked about performance measures. The chair asked about operations. We fully support that pot being available for capital, which is extending rail lines, as some asked about, buying new vehicles, cleaner vehicles, but also operations. We can put in place and buy the best capital projects, but we've got to pay the men and women to operate those services, buy power, electricity, natural gas, et cetera. That's the operational piece. We have commended for all of your consideration a formula that current state transit money, a little pot goes out on. We think that would be a great formula for this proposal with strong state rules. We do think you should direct the ARB, State Transportation Agency, Strategic Growth Council to work with the regions to come up with performance measures so that transit agencies will bring forth the best projects and services to hit those GHG reductions. We support the 5% pot for passenger rail and the Sustainable Communities pot. That's the integrated transportation and land use piece, usually capital projects. We do want higher frequency service in those areas. That's back to the 25% piece.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Chair and members, Tim Schott on behalf of the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit District. I want to thank the authors for bringing the proposal forward. BART was proud to participate in a couple of press conferences that Senator Steinberg put on when he first started to unveil this. We appreciate the transit component and commuter rail's ability to participate in that. We would recommend that there have been appropriate formulas and that a formula-driven distribution would be probably the best for that pot. We also greatly appreciate the Sustainable Communities piece of the program. Think that housing and transit-oriented development is critical to integrate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schott.
Hi, thank you, Senators. My name is David Zisser. I'm with Public Advocates, a nonprofit legal and policy organization in the Bay Area. We're an active and leading member of the 535 Coalition and the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition. And just a few very quick points. I know we're short on time. We're definitely supportive of the allocation for transit. We'd like to see a set aside for transit operations, given the importance of bus frequency for especially low-income communities. We also, overlaying all of this, and a couple of the senators talked about this, as we invest in communities, obviously there's a risk of gentrification and displacement. We'd like to make sure that all investments provide some protection against displacement, and that those that do have policies in place to prevent displacement are prioritized as investments. Obviously, a part of that, but not the only answer, is affordable transit-oriented development. On the 535 side, just want to reiterate a couple of the points made by two of my colleagues, Bill and Mary Rose, in the 535 Coalition. One is just to support the Cal Enviro Screen tool, which is robust, it's scientific, and it's well thought out. Some tweaks can be made. Certainly, we agree with the thinking about a regional measure of disadvantaged communities, but using Cal Enviro Screen to come up with those disadvantaged communities at the regional level.
Mr. Zisser, if you could.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is that making sure that we do measure how projects fulfill 535 is important. As Mary Rose said, we do have a disadvantaged community benefits tool that we've been bringing around to different offices and would be glad to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Joshua Stark with Transform, an organization dedicated to sustainable and equitable transportation and land use policies, and a member of the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition and the 535 Coalition. Appreciate the Senator's work on this, on developing programs and projects or proposals for longer-term investments that will, that pay for help with strategies to meet our goals of 80% reduction by 2050. That's where we need to keep our eye. We appreciate calling out transit as a vital investment for reducing greenhouse gases, and we recommend it to be distributed per capita to regions with competitive processes for projects and programs applying for those funds based on robust criteria and guidelines set at the state level. So we see a role for the regions in getting transit money out, but we also would like to see that the state is setting guidelines, and we understand that region by region different things happen, and we want to make sure that there's some consistency across the state. We also favor a floor for transit operations that expand ridership in communities with the highest propensity ridership, including disadvantaged communities and schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Gus Corey here on behalf of the Transportation Authority of Marin, Santa Barbara County Association of Governments, and San Mateo County Transportation Authority. I'll be very brief. 3 quick points. I want to thank Senators Steinberg and De Leon for their hard work on this proposal, as well as the pro tem staff. This is not only fulfilling funding AB 32 and SB 375, it's really the ballgame for transportation funding in the foreseeable future. We want to thank them also for including the 5% allocation for intercity rail. See previous comments made by Senator Jackson. Finally, I would ask that this body take a look at maybe recalibrating some of the percentages, and we can get into more specifics later, but in particular with respect to transportation efficiency, things like traffic light synchronization, grade separations, ramp metering. You still have 32 million registered vehicles on the state highway system and local streets and roads, and cars emit the most pollution when they're idle. So we have to still get people to work in an efficient manner or wherever they're going to go. So thank you again for the time, and I look forward to working with you.
Good points. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Robinson, representing the City and County of San Francisco, the Office of Mayor Ed Lee, the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, San Mateo County Transit District, and Caltrain, so a lot of your Bay Area transportation providers. We just want to thank the Senate, as well as specifically Senator Steinberg and De Leon, for their efforts to provide an ongoing source of funding for transit, for sustainable communities, for high-speed rail, and for intercity rail. I think it's important to note that we echo the comments made by Mr. Shaw and the California Transit Association in getting these funds out on a predictable formula so that our members have some certainty as they go to fund these operations and build these capital projects. Also, I think it's important to recognize that there is a role for the state to set up these guidelines and the performance measures so that we're not just dumping these into projects that aren't getting us the return on our investments that we fully expect to get out of this program. I would also like to acknowledge the comments that were made by both of the members up here in their support for high-speed rail. I think it's a transformative project. As we're already seeing with Caltrain in the Bay Area, the impacts are immediate with the electrification of that system. That's getting us GHG reduction. It's getting us new types of investment down there. And so we look to expand that into other areas such as LA, Central Valley, et cetera. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Good morning. Chris Rosa, representing the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. With 25% of the cap-and-trade revenues targeted for communities heavily impacted by air pollution, we wanted to note that the Bay Area and the Silicon Valley have significant air pollution problems, particularly those along the densely populated highway corridors. And we want to make sure that the tool measuring air pollution impact should take this into account and then allocate the funding accordingly. Lastly, the Silicon Valley Leadership Group supports regional important programs including BART to Silicon Valley, the modernization including electrification of Caltrain, the funding of a green bank, protecting the San Francisco Bay wetlands, and implementing sustainable community strategies including incentives for housing near transit hubs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rosen.
Good morning, Chair and members. Nicolina Hernandez with the California Association of Port Authorities, which comprises the 11 commercial publicly owned ports in the state, in support of the proposal and in particular to the 15% towards low carbon transportation and the inclusion of freight and goods movement. We believe that freight projects are a key component to meeting the requirements and goals of SB 535 and that these projects will provide real, significant, and measurable GHG emissions reductions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sylvia Solisha on behalf of Advanced Energy Economy. We're a national association of businesses working toward a global energy that is more secure, affordable, and clean. AAE agrees with the points made by Senator De Leon on the critical need to animate private markets and want to indicate our support for a single finance vehicle, such as a green bank, so that we can make better use of these dollars and leverage the revenue to maximize investment in GHG reduction and technology deployment. Thank you.
We thank you.
Good morning. Connie Galippi with the California Urban Forest Council. Just wanted to acknowledge the Senate's proposal to include urban forestry in this year's expenditure plan, as well as this long-term comprehensive plan for the future. And we're very supportive of that. We obviously see a role for urban forestry going forward in our addressing AB 32 implementation. Obviously, there are very clear and scientifically proven benefits for reducing greenhouse gas reductions, as well as many co-benefits to communities in California. So we just wanted to acknowledge our support.
Thanks, Ms. Galippi. Mr.
Mr. Chairman and members. Andrew Antwi here on behalf of the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. We very much support the idea of a long-term investment strategy, specifically the 25% for public transit. And we want to say a couple of points. One, we would be funding partners. There's a rail and bus revolution going on in Los Angeles right now. And we would match the state dollars with local dollars through Measure R and other plans that we do. Also, we don't have to guess at which projects would be funded. SB 375 laid out the blueprint for this. There is competition at the local level in selecting projects under the Sustainable Communities Plan. So that's built into the process. Additionally, we support funding for high-speed rail, and we very much support the dollars going through a regional approach. We think the STA formula is a very good idea on how to get the dollars towards the agencies that need them and can put the money to use very quickly. Lastly, on behalf of the Port of Los Angeles, we support the clean freight component within the low carbon category of expenditures. And so with that, we support. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Antwi.
Mr. Chairman, members, Mike Dillon representing the California Association of Sanitation Agencies and major wastewater agencies. Just as our agencies are being asked to help with the drought by increasing recycled water projects, they can also help with greenhouse gas reduction and new energy development. Projects could include converting wastewater biomethane to low-carbon transportation fuel, producing significant amounts of new electricity by adding food waste to the digester, which means less materials going to landfills, even using biosolids on agricultural lands can mitigate climate change. It's important to point out that these projects could be met by utilizing, for the most part, existing infrastructure with just some minor modifications. So we would urge that whatever you develop, whatever plan, that wastewater treatment plants and others involved in the production of biomethane be eligible for cap and trade funds. And specific to this plan, we would like to see public agencies possibly eligible under the 13% energy category. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Mr. Chairman, Tim Egan, representing the Southern California Association of Governments. I'll make my comments real short. We support everything.
Beautiful.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, we're part of all the coalitions. We're part of CalCog. We have been at this for quite a few years, and I think what you're hearing today is the hard work of all of you and a lot of people like us out in the weeds. One of the things I would like to highlight from Bill Hagan's perspective of CalCog, please rely on your MPOs. In SCAG's situation, we have adopted SB 375 plan that's gone through all the political hoops. It's out there. It's got buy-in by all the groups that are important in our region. So if you want to overlay the state on the region, that's okay, and I like your idea with regard to the population idea. I think if we were to kind of spread the money around, starting there with other criteria built into it, I think we might be able to get someplace.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman and members, Will Kempton with Transportation California. First of all, we want to thank the Senate leadership for bringing this proposal forward. Transportation California supports this type of flexible, long-term framework for cap-and-trade investment. We like the notion of a permanent source for programs like transit, high-speed rail, and conventional rail. And we agree with Senator Bell on the performance basis for spending these dollars, which means that even a road or highway project, which has significant greenhouse gas reduction benefits, could qualify under this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kempton.
Mr. Chairman and members, Delaney Hunter on behalf of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. VTA does support a long-term strategy for cap-and-trade revenues. We believe that a mode shift, that is moving folks out of cars and onto transit, will be key to meeting our GHG goals. And to get that mode shift, we need new transit capacity like the BART to San Jose project. That project is estimated to be able to reduce 146 million vehicle miles traveled annually, 16,000 tons of GHG reductions, and 32,000 car trips taken off in a year. We do believe that matching funds, as Senator De Leon mentioned, that is capturing local sales tax revenues, cap and trade money, and then using that to leverage our federal funds is key, especially for a project like BART to San Jose. We thank you for your support.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter.
I'm Larry Green. I'm the director of the Sacramento Air Quality Management District, and I very much appreciate this effort by Senator Steinberg, our senator, and Senator De Leon. We very much support this effort, and we very much appreciate the linkage in this idea. And the allocation methods. We have some opportunities here to really ensure this money is spent wisely. In that regard, we're working locally already with our agencies who are going to receive money through these. However it turns out, we're going to have local agencies in trees, housing, and other areas who are going to receive money. We want to ensure that across all these different areas, we are locally leveraging that money into the right project areas, especially to help our disadvantaged communities. So we're anticipating this, and we think that the opportunities here really are going to allow us to do some great things locally.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Mr. Chair and members, Bonnie Holmes-Jen with the American Lung Association in California. We greatly appreciate being part of this important conversation. The American Lung Association in California and our public health partners strongly support investments in the key priorities that you've discussed today, promoting sustainable communities, systems of transit throughout the state, low carbon transportation, clean energy, and making sure these benefits are provided to all communities in California. And we see tremendous public health benefits. We released a study 2 weeks ago demonstrating that low carbon transportation can achieve over 10 billion public health benefits by 2020, up to 23 billion in public health benefits by 2025. 2 quick comments. The time for investing in SB 375 is now. It's very critical right now because we have a lot of very good sustainable community strategies in place, but the game changer is providing the funding, the resources to shift local communities from status quo sprawl planning to walkable, bikeable, transit-friendly communities. This is critical. So we support that component fully and also support full funding for low-carbon transportation. Moving to near-zero emission vehicles is critical. We're especially concerned about communities living near freight corridors and the need for sustainable freight, and we would like to see the cleanest vehicles going to the most impacted areas of the state from an air quality perspective, especially the San Joaquin Valley.
Great. Thank you.
Good morning. John Arriaga on behalf of the Coast Rail Coordinating Council and the Transportation Agency of Monterey County. We too would like to thank Senators Steinberg and De Leon for their efforts in putting together a plan to best utilize the cap and trade funds. In particular, we'd like to discuss our support for the intercity rail dollars, the 5% that is proposed for a permanent stream of funding for that. In our area, with the emerging of the Coast Rail passenger service and also the extension of the Gilroy to Salinas service, that would be very helpful. And in particular, I'd like to thank Senator Monning and Senator Jackson for their comments and the discussion that came about regarding intercity rail. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Rebecca Long with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We'd like to thank Senators De Leon and Steinberg for their excellent plan. We're very much supportive of it. A couple of nuances we would highlight with respect to the Sustainable Communities pot. We would like to see the funds split 50-50 with 50% going towards affordable housing and 50% going towards transportation-related projects in the Sustainable Community Strategy. And we strongly support the comments made by Tim Egan and Bill Higgins with respect to empowering the MPOs that are charged with developing the sustainable community strategies to be the ones to select the projects rather than creating a whole new bureaucracy at the state level through the Strategic Growth Council. And then I would like to thank you, Senator Leno and Senator Hancock, for raising the issue of how do we define disadvantaged communities. MTC, in fact, adopted the SB 535 targets in our long-range plan. We have assumed cap-and-trade funding, and we very much support investment in disadvantaged communities, but we're very concerned about the Cal-Enviro screen. And just a couple of statistics for you to keep in mind. When you look at low-income population, the Bay Area has about 13%. When you adjust for cost of living, we're at 17% of the statewide low income. When you look at the Cal-Enviro screen, the top 10%, we are at 0.4% of the statewide population. So you're looking at 17% income, low income versus 0.4 in our region. Only 4 census tracts qualify. This is seriously skewed, and it does remind me of one of the books I read in graduate school, which was How to Lie with Statistics. I think the Cal-Enviro screen probably is very useful for identifying certain types of populations, but when we're talking about how we invest
critical cap and trade funding, we've got to make sure that we get the funds to low-income communities and where the dollars are going to make the most sense.
Thank you, Ms. Long.
Thank you.
Good morning, Jennifer Whiting with the League of California Cities. Also wanted to add my thanks to Senator Steinberg and Senator De Leon for this proposal, particularly for the sustainable communities piece of it. We think that there's a great opportunity for us to make a coordinated and significant investment in housing and transportation together that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the long run. We would like to, as you're playing with the percentages, see that pot grow. We did prefer the previous proposal that had a little bit more funding for that pot, but I understand it's a work in progress. The second point in that pot is we would really like to see complete streets listed as a eligible expense. Right now it's active transportation, and there's been lots of discussions about complete streets. It's just a little bit broader eligibility that would also, in addition to the active transportation projects, would support the increase in transit use of our local streets and roads. Very quickly, on the energy efficiency and waste diversion pieces, we are also very interested in those pieces. Cities stand ready to be your partner in getting those funds out the door, and we look forward to working with you on the details.
Thank you, Ms. Whiting.
Morning, I'm Jamie Hall, Policy Director for CalSTART. I also want to thank the senators for this proposal, and we very much support your vision. We've been working with a large coalition of industry and nonprofit leaders focused on the low-carbon transportation piece. The transportation sector is the biggest source of emissions in the state. It's a tough nut to crack, but we've really got to address this. With this group, we've estimated public investment needs for cleaner cars, trucks, and buses over the next several years. We believe at least $200 million is needed in FY 14-15, growing over time to an annual average of about $500 million over the next decade, and that would be about 20% of projected revenues over that time. This level of investment would help put 1 million zero-emission vehicles on our roads. We'd see large commercial-scale deployments of zero-emission buses and delivery trucks, and we would also see dramatically accelerated development and deployment of cleaner big rig trucks and off-road technologies. Additionally, several of the most innovative manufacturers and suppliers in this space are based here in California, so there are definite job benefits from these investments. Low-carbon transportation benefits all Californians, but it really makes an especially big difference in these disadvantaged communities, and we appreciate that there's a focus there in this proposal.
Thank you, Mr.
So as you consider these investments, we hope you will keep this as a priority. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.